All right, today I've got a story for you. It's this really powerful story that comes from a small school in a small town, and it all boils down to two teachers, one subject, and how two very different approaches created two totally different worlds for their students.
So picture this. In this school, there's a classroom, Class 10B, and it's not known for being the smartest or the loudest. It's known for one single emotion: fear. And the subject they were learning was just mathematics. But the feeling that filled that room every single day was just pure, straight-up fear.
Okay, so let's actually step inside this classroom. Let's look at this world of Class 10B. The source of all this anxiety? Well, he had a name. It was their maths teacher, Sir Raghav. Now, if you looked at Sir Raghav on paper, you'd think he was a great teacher. I mean, the guy was always on time, he was experienced, and he had his routine down to a science. He'd walk in, write a bunch of formulas on the board, solve one or two problems, assign homework, and then he was out. But here's the thing. He never, ever explained the why behind any of it.
And this right here was the real issue. If a student was brave enough, and I mean brave enough, to ask a question, the response was always the same. This cold, cutting phrase, "This you should already know." It wasn't an answer. It was a shutdown. It basically made them feel stupid for even asking.
So what happens when you create that kind of environment? Well, it's exactly what you'd expect. The classroom went silent. The questions just stopped. The students ended up just memorizing formulas so they could pass the test, not because they understood them. Maths wasn't a puzzle to solve anymore. It was like a foreign language they had to parrot back without a clue what it meant.
But then, right in the middle of the school year, everything changed. Sir Raghav got transferred, and a new teacher walked in. And he was totally different. No loud voice, no stern face, just this calm smile. His name was Anand Sir. And his first move, it wasn't to open a textbook. Nope. He just started a conversation. He didn't kick things off with a formula. He kicked things off with a feeling. He looked around the room and asked this one simple, really honest question.
And the reaction, whoa. At first it was slow, one hesitant hand, then another. But then it was like a wave. Almost every single hand in that classroom shot up. This wasn't just a couple of kids having a hard time. This was the whole class, and they were all in the same boat, completely terrified.
But Anand Sir's response, this is what changed everything. He didn't look at all those hands and see failure. He saw a starting point, and he said, "Good. That means the problem is not with your brain. It's with the way maths were shown to you." I mean, can you imagine the relief? With that one sentence, he lifted years of self-doubt right off their shoulders.
So now that he knew the real problem was fear, Anand Sir just threw the old way of doing things out the window. He came up with a totally new plan. He wasn't going to teach maths for an exam. He was going to teach it for real life.
And he started with something everyone could understand: a tea shop. He said, okay, imagine this. You spend 100 rupees on all your supplies. Then you go out and sell 50 cups of tea for 10 rupees each. What's the result? And get this, a student who had never spoken a word in class before confidently said, a 400 rupee profit, sir.
And that was it. That was the breakthrough moment. Anand Sir looked at them and said, "See, you already know maths, you just didn't know that's what it was called." He made them realize they were already using logic in math every single day. It wasn't some scary, abstract thing. He was just giving a name to something they already knew.
And this became his whole teaching style. All of a sudden, ratios weren't these weird fractions. They were just how you mix ingredients when you're cooking. Percentages? That was just the battery bar on your phone or the discount at your favorite store. He made maths feel like common sense.
But the biggest difference, the real game changer, was how they handled mistakes. For Sir Raghav, a mistake meant you failed. He'd snap, "How many times should I explain this?" But for Anand Sir, a mistake was a good thing. It was proof that your brain was firing up, that you were actually trying. One teacher made you afraid to be wrong, the other made you excited to learn.
So what happens when you make that kind of shift? Well, the change that happened in Class 10B was, honestly, it felt like magic. The whole feeling in the room just started to transform.
It was pretty incredible. Think about this. Even the simple act of raising your hand completely changed its meaning. Before, it was about timidly asking for permission. Now, hands were shooting up to ask questions, to challenge an idea, to really dig in. It wasn't about permission anymore, it was about curiosity.
And this change didn't just stay in the classroom. it spilled out into their homes. There's this one story about a mother who came to the school with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Sir, my son explains maths to me now." Just think about that. The kid who was once terrified of this subject is now teaching it at home. That's so much bigger than just a grade on a report card.
So when you boil it all down, what was the real difference here? What was the principle that drove this amazing change? Well, it all came down to why each of them was teaching in the first place.
You had two completely different philosophies. Sir Raghav was teaching for the syllabus. His job was to get through the chapters, check the boxes. But Anand sir, he was teaching for the soul. He wasn't just trying to finish a textbook, he was trying to build their minds and give them confidence for life.
And you know who said it best? The students themselves. At the end of the year, they gave him a gift, and the note inside said it all. They understood that the real lessons weren't about numbers at all. They were about thinking, believing in yourself, and having courage.
At the end of the day, this story isn't really about maths, is it? It's about the incredible impact one person can have when they teach from the heart. And it kind of makes you think, right? Who is that teacher for you?